Week 8 of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream, keeping you connected with Lewis and Clark Athletics from wherever you may be on Facebook Live and archived through YouTube, youtube.com/lcpios. Tuesday through Friday at 11:30, we are live with a different guest, usually a student athlete, coach, member of the Lewis and Clark community, or an alumnus, and try to keep you connected with the community, ask you questions, and let your questions be asked. It's an exciting opportunity that we haven't been able to do in the past, but trying to make the best of an odd situation with the coronavirus pandemic that took us off campus well before we had hoped. I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are in the Northwest Conference, based out of Portland, Oregon, competing with other Division III schools in the Northwest Conference from throughout Northwest Oregon and throughout the state of Washington. And with NCAA Division III, the opportunity to compete nationwide against over 430 institutions across the country. And what's been really neat too about some of our recent guests, including Annika Klunk from Tuesday's show, a recent graduate class of 2020 from women's golf, the opportunity for overseas study and being able to, visit and learn areas from throughout the entire world. A really robust overseas study program at Lewis and Clark, which has been definitely recognized nationally. And I think it's a cool opportunity that I always am excited to mention with our student athletes and student body in general. We invite you to get connected. You can comment on our Facebook Live comments below. Email us, sports@lclark.edu, or connect with us on Instagram and Twitter, LC Pioneers. And it's exciting to do so. Suggest a guest. Maybe there's somebody that you think we should definitely have on the show that maybe we haven't yet. I would definitely like to see that in the future as well. Today's guest is going to be head coach of Lewis and Clark Swimming, Chris Fantz. He is entering his 14th season leading the swimming programs at Lewis and Clark. He's twice over a Northwest Conference Coach of the Year. So we'll talk to him about this past season. With it being a winter sport too, they were the last season to compete and finish with the Northwest Conference Championships that Lewis and Clark hosted this year in Federal Way, Washington. So we'll talk to him about some of the successes this year and his senior class too. What are they up to? Some opportunities ahead of them, hopefully, in the near future. A couple of announcements. Go to lcpioneers.com and you can read the most recent release are all sportsmanship teams from the Northwest Conference. Basically, a student athlete from each team that competes in the Northwest Conference sport recognized for sportsmanship. And we had 18 Lewis and Clark student athletes recognized on that list. You can find that right now at lcpioneers.com. And then also a neat thing from our group over at Public Communications at Lewis and Clark. They featured two former student athlete alumni, Thor and Stein Retzloff, both former football student athletes for the Pioneers, and they went on an Arctic expedition, and their work with photographer Aaron Hogue were featured on outdoor TV. They had an about 11-minute segment, I want to say, called Area 11, and it talked about their journey through the Arctic, just a few hundred miles from the North Pole in Norway. They did a lot of skiing, but also there were some moments that were very visually striking and intriguing to watch, including I think up to about 30 hours where they were stuck in their tent just because high winds, low visibility. They weren't able to do some of the things that they were able to do when the weather was better and more cooperative. But it's a really neat visual thing. You can find it at lcpioneers.com/area 11. That was a neat segment, and thanks to our group over at Public Communications, Yancey Gordon, class of 21, helping write that feature on the Retzloffs. So with that said, let's bring in our guest for today. He is Lewis and Clark's head swimming coach, Chris Fantz, joining us on lcpioneers.com Live. We appreciate joining us, Chris, bringing us into our later part of the week on Thursday. How is your early part of the summer been treating you with commencement just a Saturday removed?
Good morning, Ryan. Yeah, it's good to be here and visit. Yeah, early part of summer still feels like spring, and it still feels a little like late winter. It's been an interesting end to a school year. But commencement, yeah, last week was awesome. It's fun to in any way we get to celebrate our seniors, trying to take advantage of that. So connecting with our seniors that week leading up to graduation or the day of, and watching that virtual ceremony. I enjoyed that. I thought it was a nice way to do something that works in a global pandemic. So, I mean, a lot of kids all over the country and all over the world are graduating. remotely right now, and that's a weird thing that isn't normally done. But I think our kids deserve a lot of celebrating, and we've tried to do that this spring. So it was a nice ceremony.
And I mentioned too, Chris, that your program, along with the basketball programs, the last full season to get finished, and even on the national level, some of the national competitions certainly didn't take place because of coronavirus pandemic. But when you think
Right.
about the last full season competitively, just the stuff that happened in the pool, culminating at the Northwest Conference Championships, what were some of your takeaways from the past competitive swimming season?
Mm, man, this year feels a little bit like a lifetime ago now, and it's kind of fun, to be honest, to take that like mental leap backwards and remember that we really did get to finish an entire swim season, start to finish. So I think gratitude right up front comes to mind. The fact that we got to have, the exciting, challenging, like typical, filled with ups and downs kind of a year of being a collegiate sports team, and we got to finish with that conference championship. So I'm super thankful we did that. It was a good year. A lot of good energy across all four of our classes, and team gelled pretty well. We had a really fun, eclectic, exuberant freshman class. Our incoming kids this year in their first year on the team connected with their teammates really well, I think. So that always goes a long ways in just kind of keeping the vibe going of the things that have been really good about Pioneer Swimming. So really enjoyed adding in our freshman class and seeing them pretty quickly. And you see that in workouts more than anything initially, of just connecting, intermingling, laughing, having a lot of fun, team meals, stuff like that. So I enjoyed that this season. We had a lot of competitive success and wrapped up with some pretty fast swimming at the end of the year. A number of school records, but a number of breakout swims across all different kids on our team. So it was a good one, and we are super lucky that we kind of squeaked in before the global pandemic. It had already set in, I guess, but it hadn't really kicked off all of the shutdowns and closures, and we just got our championship in, and like you said, we got to host this year, so it was fun having a lot of my peers from the department up in Federal Way, seeing the championship. Some of them had been there before, several of them hadn't, and it's cool to kind of showcase like what our kids do on the biggest stage, because a lot of these people support us a ton year round and more often on campus, and getting them out to a world class venue, seeing the best swimming in the conference, and our kids part of that, having the fun, getting up on the podium, doing all those things. It was a nice way to finish a season for us.
He's Chris Fantz, head coach of Lewis and Clark Swimming, joining us on lcpioneers.com live. Yeah, that was neat even for me to be able to be up there for a day and a half. That usually doesn't get to happen over the course of now a 4-day event, Northwest Conference Swimming Championships. And last chance for your seniors to compete. When you think back about this specific senior class, what are some of your best memories and any cool opportunities that you see some of your seniors getting to do post graduation, whether it be internship or job placements that they're excited about?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love our senior class, and each team, each class is a little different, and we really appreciate our seniors every year, and certainly it starts to kind of set in, at least for me, once commencement hits, and you naturally start thinking like, what's next? What does fall look like? And you have to kind of mentally reconfigure what your team looks like, and you count these people as alumni now, and as friends in most cases, and just like looking at that down the road relationship and that connection, and realizing they're not going to be on deck in the fall in the same way. And some of our kids stick around Portland and make their lives and their homes here, and others pretty rapidly end up in very different parts of the world. And so reconciling that many days a week for 4 years being around people that we like really cherish, and them not being back on deck and in the pool with us in the fall. And I think, it sets in for some of them at commencement, and, as was my college experience, it really sets in as September starts to roll around and you realize, whatever you're doing, it's not that same thing you did growing up for years and years of starting school in the fall and going to practice. And so it's going to look different, certainly for them, and certainly for us. But this class has been fantastic. Just great fun, great honor to coach. And I never try to hide like the fact that there are challenges and ups and downs for anyone doing college, and certainly collegiate athletes. But just like the joy with which these kids kind of continued through our program, and we're just so committed, so focused. And I think about that like across all the different ways you might be committed, but the attendance is incredible with that class, as well as just love for teammates and energy and hard work, and the stick-to-itiveness of doing hard things and racing hard events, and just general like good disposition. So it was fun to see these kids, and when we've been home these last couple months, we just got different things to do, and so I kind of went back and looked at a lot of my photos over the last 4 years, and just looking at that class who just graduated from their freshman year, digging back through the archives, it's kind of wild, just seeing how much they have grown, like in a literal sense of stronger, more powerful, just different ways they carry themselves, but also just remembering, from their freshman year and how much fun they had then, and seeing the pictures from the LCs, stuff like that from 4 years ago. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to really try to make sure, I hope that they feel loved and appreciated, even if we're in this weird time, but even just, as a coach going back through, appreciating for myself, like everything that they've given. I think it's a good time of year to do that.
And from a coaching perspective too, one thing that I always enjoy with my office right there in Zembauer Swimming Pavilion is I get to see a lot more of your practices than maybe any other sport, just walking through at a glance. And it looks like the coaching staff cohesion, whether even a year like now, you have a longtime assistant, Bill Patterson, but Lainey Castle comes in for her first year, replacing Sarit Glues, who gets a head coaching opportunity. But Sarit was with you for a very long time too. What is it
Mm-hmm.
about the coaching staff, philosophically? What do you try to do? And also, I'm interested if you can share some of the aspects of coaching swimming that maybe contrast with a sport that we might have more exposure to, maybe a ball sport from a practice standpoint. What changes when it comes to coaching swimmers?
Right. I try to. I love analogies and metaphors, but I try not to tell people I know what coaching a ball sport is actually like. But I will say, with to answer your first question, with our coaching staff, man, I love our assistant coaches. We've had a really good run of committed, like super passionate, just good assistant coaches who are good people. And so I think if there's something I've done well, it's taking advantage of finding good people and getting them around me and getting them around our team. And so this year that continued. Bill was in his sixth year, and Lainey came right in and had coached swimming before, but not at the college level, but had been a standout swimmer in college herself, and just immediately connected with our kids, shared ideas, shared all kinds of different thoughts on physiology and nutrition, and mental preparation, and you know that's really cool. And as you mentioned, Sarit, a year ago, just over a year ago now, kind of packed up and headed off to her own head coaching job. But she had been here 5 years before that, and that's a pretty good stint in an assistant coaching life at one place. And she had been a pioneer and continues to be a pioneer. And was in that junior class when I got here 13 years ago. And so to coach people, see them go away, come back, continue to be part of our team and our family is pretty cool. As for coaching swimming, I don't always know what makes it different, but I do know what makes it meaningful. And from my perspective, just about everybody I've ever had on our staff, I would say had a really positive collegiate swimming experience themselves, and that was different for each of them. Some of them were Division III small college swimmers, more like what I did, and some of my assistants, including Bill, had swum at Division I level and were world class swimmers at the time. And I think the thing that kind of ties them all together is they had a good experience, cared about their teammates, stayed connected with teammates, and can just sort of step into a coaching position, really wanting to figure out how to build that for our team. It's not about ego, and it's not about making us look good, except in the way that people seeing your team having fun together, enjoying each other, and swimming fast does make the coach look good. But it's really more about like how can we create environments and provide opportunities. That's kind of how I think about swimming, and it's how I think about it more now than ever, because the kids are bringing all of the components that they need, and we can provide opportunities for that and outlets or like containers for the the right kind of energy, but they're doing the work, and we occasionally are guiding or steering. But that's how I think about college coaching, certainly.
It's lcpioneers.com live Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 on Facebook Live and archived on YouTube, youtube.com/lcpios. Chris Fantz is our guest, head coach of Pioneers Swimming. And you competed in the Northwest Conference. You now have been at Lewis and Clark for a decade and a half as the head coach. When you describe the opportunity that Lewis and Clark student athletes have if they choose to be part of the Pioneers athletic community, what comes top of mind, as far as what makes it a great opportunity, what you share with them right off the top?
I think the word that comes up a lot for most of us is balance. And when I say that, I think it's important to dig into what we mean by balance, because you could construe like the balance piece that we always talk about as you get to do a little of this and a little of that, and a few different things you care about. And I think that misses like the bigger picture of what our kids are actually doing, and that's being able to be like focused, committed, exceptional students at a school that cares about that and is not easy and is not just laying it all out super smoothly, but it's making them work, and it's a pretty rigorous environment. And while they're doing that, there is still that opportunity to be committed, focused, hardworking teammates and have what I think is just a fantastic team experience, and being part of a sport that, by the time you've gotten to college, if you're thinking about college swimming, it's, whether it's been a smooth road or not to that point in your swimming career, it's obviously meant a lot to you, and it's become a part of who you are, and I think it actually makes the transition to college smoother oftentimes. And it, for some kids trying to weigh that arriving to college and how could I possibly fit this all in component, which I think is real, but I think that's overstating it. What I find with our team and with our new freshmen coming into the program is often swimming is actually the grounding presence in their lives, and they have that support network of teammates immediately, both their class and much older students who've done this for a few years, and they have that foundation of going to class, going to practice, having a fitness regimen, and staying healthy. And the bigger adjustments to college tend to be like exactly that, adjusting to being away at college and living on your own, or having classes at funny times and time in the day where you might want to be studying rather than just those blocks of high school periods like you're used to. Um, so I think, but the balance piece with that caveat that it actually allows them to be super focused students and athletes rather than a little of this, a little of that.
Well, I certainly know that the student athletes that are on your team are impacted greatly by your presence, Chris, and your entire staff. You guys do a great job shaping the future of your student athletes and supplying them an opportunity to be successful in whatever they want to be successful in. So we certainly appreciate that about you. And I certainly appreciate you joining us on lcpioneers.com live today. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Ryan.
Chris Fantz on lcpioneers.com live. I mean, really a well put together, enjoyable person to be around. You have coworkers and people that you interact with on a daily or weekly basis, in any job. And Chris is one of those guys who is so great at providing a tremendous amount of perspective and well thought out responses. And that's what I like about having him as an interview subject. He's someone who can describe at a different level, the opportunities that exist at Lewis and Clark, and what his student athletes are doing, and sees that big picture. And so his teams continue to rise. One thing I didn't even mention, he's a two-time Northwest Conference Coach of the Year, which I did say, but he has only maybe 5 records left on the big record board that's center of the pool that haven't been broken since he's been the head coach at Lewis and Clark. So not only student athletes in all the ways outside of the pool that have been successful, but certainly in the pool as well. So big thanks to Chris for joining us today. That means one more guest left for the week, and that is Joseph Fastuca, who will join us from Campus Living tomorrow. We will talk to him as a fellow member of the Division of Student Life, how campus living is impacting the student experience at Lewis and Clark. Definitely excited to get his perspective as an area director and interactions with student athletes and opportunities to grow just based on the way that campus living is set up, let alone what they're doing in the classroom or through competition. And then next week we have some pretty exciting guests. We'll have Sarah Howard and Peyton Romo. They both competed this last season for Lewis and Clark. Sarah was a 2020 graduate. Peyton Romo, one of those all sportsmanship winners, or all sportsmanship team selections from the Northwest Conference. She will be entering her junior season for women's basketball. And in between, Sam Taylor, like Chris, a long tenured head coach at Lewis and Clark. He oversees the rowing programs. And then Raid Atia is a former Lewis and Clark standout men's tennis player who just recently graduated from graduate school, focusing on entrepreneurship. We look forward to talking to him a week from today. So if you have any guest suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Email us sports@lclark.edu. You can also put them in the comments during any of our broadcasts, and connect with us on our social media. Twitter and Instagram are great places to go to. Perhaps you have missed any of the things that we've done through any of those channels, including the virtual LCs that we had a couple of weeks ago. You can do so by following us on Instagram. LC Pioneers is how to find us there. So until we talk to you tomorrow with our final guest of the week, Joseph Fastuca of Campus Living, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. Big thanks again to Chris for joining us, and we'll hope to see you again soon for more lcpioneers.com live. Goodbye, everybody.
Lewis and Clark is amazing.
Beautiful campus, small classes.
When you really come here, you get this sense and the feeling that this is a place that you could spend 4 years.
I was so comfortable learning and growing here.
There's no ostentation, there's no pretension, no status. Everyone's just here to learn.
To this bustling metropolitan area.
The overseas program is giving you the opportunity to explore the world, go to places that you never thought of. Just come here, just visit the school, and you're gonna fall in love with it.
It's time to explore Lewis and Clark.